I did it right. Good morning, everyone. This is Fran Lewis. This is MJ Network. MJ Network in memory of my sister, Marcia Joyce, who brought me on this road. And Jessi Bixler is here, and wait to hear the story. The story we share, Bixler gives voice to that ripple effect with unflinching honesty, shares her own journey alongside the perspectives of her husband, parents, and others who bore the weight of her trauma. Together, their stories reveal the failures of the justice system, the resilience of faith and love, and the ongoing fight to heal. Both heartbreaking and hopeful, this book is a testimony to resilience and an invitation to walk with more truth, more empathy, and more hope, calling us toward courage and compassion. This was really, I was telling this to several other people, and there's a lot of people that want the book, and they can't have it. They have to buy it.
I
So,
appreciate it.
yeah. They didn't look at me and say, "Oh, how could you do that?" They go like, "You should do that." So fear, anger, hope. When you share a story after 12 years and writing, giving you a different perspective on life, what made you start on this role and what made you decide that you had to write it? And it must have been really hard waking up in the morning. And that was like,
Yeah,
I could imagine.
yeah, yeah. What started me on this trajectory, so I had always, my mom kind of, right after everything happened, she was the encouragement that said, we need to write this down. We need to keep track of this. So she started that. And after I had found a therapist, she also encouraged, keeping notes and using that as a form of therapy. And it was about just over a year and a half ago, that same therapist was unfortunately dying. And she was talking about wanting to document her process, working
Mm.
through her life story and her mission as well. And I was like, maybe this is the kick in the pants that I need to actually see what can come of this. So I just, a writer, just kind of brainstormed and I think I have this idea. So it just started by exploring and seeing if what I had on my heart was actually a viable idea, meaning like sharing other people's perspectives, because I think oftentimes other people in trauma situations, whether it's sexual assault or any other sort of trauma, the focus is always so much on the survivor or the victim that the secondary victims are often overlooked.
It's amazing because half the time they don't believe the person that goes assaulted. And that's
Right,
what really gets me. I know.
right.
And then even though you would definitely prove what you were right, it's sad, especially as to who it was.
Yeah,
That's even more. You're very lucky. Chad was very, very. Thank God he wasn't the type of person that said, "Oh, she would do it." He believed you right away.
right. He
Yeah,
did. Yeah. So Chad's my husband. He's amazing, as you stated. Yeah, but he believed me. He was the unwavering force and the support throughout that time. And also keep in mind, we were only married for a handful of years, so we were still newlyweds with two small children
yeah,
and just trying to figure out life.
that had to be hard because I know that when somebody does that, you're afraid to have anybody go near you, and
Yes.
that's a
Yeah.
yeah. The slightest touch, you
Yeah.
want to smash somebody in the head. That I know
Yeah.
that's hard.
It was a, yeah, especially, yeah, he, during that time, I had, just because of the assault, I needed him by me at all times, like physically touching me. I needed to have my arm around him, have his
Yeah,
arm around me. I couldn't have anybody come in our house without him there. And it was really hard to kind of integrate back to work because I worked at that time in an industry which was predominantly men. So 90% of my coworkers were men. And feeling that, having to walk through the hallways and feel that emotion every single day was really, really hard.
I know. Sometimes when people know what happened, they stare at you. That makes it even harder.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
and
know.
even if they don't know, I found myself thinking that they did know. It was kind of this ping pong in my head that they knew, that they could see through me, that they could see over my face.
The sad part is, we're going to call him X. I don't know. I don't want to know who he is. His reaction was like, "You got to be kidding me." I mean, how does somebody not at least admit that they did the wrong thing? It's scary.
Yeah,
So what happened? Yeah, that's very
yes.
scary. And he didn't. He just sort of like, oh, like it's okay, almost like it's okay. I could do it again, and I don't care. So when you report,
Yep.
this was hard because I know how it feels. What steps did you take to report what happened? And then the hard part is the process that the hospital makes you go through. That's even
Yeah.
worse. Yeah.
Yeah. I can talk a little bit about that. Yeah. So I think so. The process that we had to go through, it was actually so the assault happened at our
Yeah.
home, my daughter's birthday, just for context. And so it was, her first birthday party. And I had my family in town. So my parents were visiting in town. And it was actually my mom and my husband, Chad, who were the ones that made the decision to call the police. A lot of times, what people, I think people do and don't understand is that a survivor, their minds sometimes become fragmented. So I don't remember them asking me to call the police. I'm sure they did. It's just not something that I remember, just kind of because of the nature of the trauma. So they called the police. The police came, arrested him from our house. They gathered enough information from me and everyone else that was there in order to hold him for 24 hours. And that was the only time that he spent in jail. So after that, we then went to the police, escorted us to the hospital where I received the examination, which is about 2 hours. And prior to that, it was
Yeah.
waiting for about an hour for a nurse examiner to show up. So yeah, it's a very difficult process to go through immediately after. My dad was the one that drove me to the hospital and stayed with me the whole time. So yeah, so then after that, it was having to go and get a restraining order. So being face to face with him again. The year after that, getting a restraining order. So there's lots of instances that are difficult and challenging for a survivor, where it's re-traumatization, having to tell your story over and over, having to see the perpetrator over and over. And there's not currently a lot of safeguards to protect the survivor, and especially 12 years ago. But that part's really hard.
It doesn't go away.
No.
And the hard part is that sometimes you picture the whole thing in your mind. And you say, "Did that really happen?" And
That's
people don't understand. I mean, that's amazing. Well, I worked in a school for a lot of years, and there were a couple of guys that attacked teachers in the hall, in the closet. Oh, and then the principal at first didn't believe it until everybody told them and proved it, and they don't
Mhm.
believe you, and they figure, well, you're gorgeous. You brought it on yourself. Why would anybody that's happily
Mhm.
married or anything bring it? No one would bring it on themselves. And
Yeah,
that's the
that's
problem.
Yeah, you bring up
It,
a really good point. I wanted to
yeah,
mention too. It's interesting that, and maybe interesting is not the right word, but I think you know this, that rape and sexual assault is one of the
yeah,
only crimes where people are not believed first. So, for example, if I told you, "Oh my gosh, Fran, I was just robbed," you would say, "Oh my gosh, are you okay? What happened? Are you safe?" Um, Rape and sexual assault, oftentimes people's first inclination is to say, "Well, what'd you do? what
Yeah,
were you wearing? They don't start by believing. So that's something that is a really important shift that we're trying to make and kind of help people understand the difference there.
it's Sarah. He had the cold-hearted, horrible person, and he just thought it was. He pretended that it didn't matter, and why did he act so brazen? And then on top of which, his family didn't want to believe that he did that. They chastised you and some of Chad's cousins. I mean, really, and they didn't want to believe that he would do something like that, even though they probably knew he would.
Yeah, a lot
That's
of things in family dynamics are challenging, especially in other cultures where it's easier, safer, more of like a cultural norm, and even in sometimes like a religious situation where it's just we just want to keep everything in the confines of our little circle.
that's just scary. Now, when you had the hardest part must have been to file the report and to have to take down your words. And how did the hospital treat you? And why did the detective take down the information instead of one of the nurses or something that might have made you feel better? Did you have to write out what happened?
No, I had to, when the detectives showed up at my house, I had to first, that was the first time that I had to kind of recount what happened
Uh-huh, yeah.
to the hospital and had to recount for the nurse what had happened. Then the detectives came to the hospital and questioned me again, the same detectives, in order to keep him overnight for 24 hours. So that's three times in, you know,
Oh
less than
God.
to have to recount what had happened. And that's hard too, again, because the nature of trauma is, your brain's trying to protect you. So you want to say the right thing, but and the truth, but oftentimes our brain is protecting us. So sometimes detectives with improper training will assume that a survivor is making it up or not being truthful. And in reality, that's not the case at all.
Well, they probably wanted to see if you were going to say the same thing or change the story.
Right.
I'm good at these. I know. I know because even when doing a review, whatever, they look to see, oh, did she really read the book, or do you understand what I'm saying? Probably with no problem. What can I say?
Yeah.
So must have been the hardest part. What happens when you meet the prosecuting attorney? Do they believe you, or
They
they
said,
just look like a slam dunk to them? Oh, she said it. They have to actually prove it, and that's hard.
and that's something I think that maybe perhaps I was ignorant going in, having never been involved with the legal system
Yeah.
before. I was under the impression, um, you know, maybe shows like Law and Order help give us the wrong impression of how the system works. But I assumed that when someone says, "Would you like to press charges?" that meant that I was in control. I got to make that determination. That choice was mine. What I learned is that's not the case. So we met with the prosecutor and shared what happened. The prosecutor then determined how quickly the rape kit was processed based on whether or not she was going to prosecute. So we were under the impression like, okay, she decided, this was it. It was either going to be a certain count of rape or sexual assault, depending on what she deemed was the severity based on our story. We were told that once the rape kit was processed, then we would move forward. Once the rape kit was processed, she did tell us that she was not prosecuting the case anymore. So whether or not we wanted to bring charges
Yeah.
against this individual, we did not have a choice. And that part was having spent 6 months waiting and assuming things would go a certain way, prosecuting meaning he would go in jail, he'd be on a sex offender list, and then being told no. it was horrible. It was like the rug was literally pulled out from under us.
I think the hardest part is going to trial with something like this. And even though we'll talk about mediations, I've been to mediation for something for my mom, and that's a process that you have to. They don't always let you speak. No, she was it was a Medicaid Medicare, and they wanted to pull her funding. I don't know what possessed me to have such a big mouth, but you go in front of the judge, and the judge is the one that talks, and they don't let you. He let me talk,
Mm,
and I the guy that was working with my mother didn't send the money to the trust to pay for her home care, whatever he was doing. He was using it for himself, but I proved it. I
mm,
proved all of it, got it all back. And I couldn't believe I never in my whole life, ever. And the judge looked at me, my sister, he says, she can speak because I believe every word she said. The guy, I was like, yeah, you have, I mean, he didn't even take it seriously, this guy. He just sort of like,
mm,
so what? How do you do something to someone like that and have no ambivalent? And his family was ambivalent too. They didn't quite believe it either. That's the sad part. How do you deal with that? You don't. It's kind of,
right.
I know. Well, after all was said and done, what made you decide to go into mediation? And that's some process.
Yeah, we even prior to mediation, after the prosecutor decided that they weren't going to
Yeah.
prosecute, we were just kind of left going, "What now? What do we do?" And so a friend of ours had suggested talking to a civil attorney, and that was a hard step, even though they were a trusted friend and friend of ours. That was hard because we knew enough to know that civil civil resulted in a monetary outcome, and all we wanted was really just to see this person behind bars. So once we made
Yeah.
the decision to pursue civil suit, um, that also comes with a trial, but learning as we go, we realize that oftentimes mediation can be done prior to going to trial to save money, time, trauma for everybody involved. So we did go the mediation route. Um, that was, again, another time where we had to recount what had happened, and we were putting our fate in the hands of another individual to help try and mediate. And that, unfortunately, that first time did not go the way that we hoped it would for, that 8 hours that we were there. And once again, the individual was present, um, walked past Chad and I 5 feet in front of us. So repeated trauma, repeating, that the feeling of, loss of safety and fear, it was very difficult.
Well, something I do know about, but I won't say why. I do know that the opposition plays games, asks for extensions, and probably figures if they do it long enough, you're going to just forget about it. And you
Yeah, that's
can't.
exactly what happened.
You can't when it comes to a situation like this where you have to worry about this guy needs to be held responsible for something.
Yeah.
And he really thought he was responsible. And I wouldn't be surprised if after he did that to you, he didn't do it to other people too.
Or had done.
And I'm sure that he still hasn't stopped. He's probably still saying I didn't do it. So I mean, how do you deal with that with this opposition? And your lawyer's name was Paul.
Yes,
Yeah, was he good?
he was amazing. He's
That's the
he's
hard part.
definitely
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
he's definitely the hero in this story.
He made the story. Well, the hard part is when did you realize you were going to trial? And the hard part is your family and his family. How did they react when you
Yeah,
decided I'm not going to put up with this? He's not getting away with it. I'm going to speak out. I would.
yeah. I can't speak to that side of, his side of the family. I can say that my side of the family, including Chad, were
Yeah.
all very, very supportive, never questioned. If anything, they were encouraging and felt the same way. Like, we can't let him get away with this. We have to move forward. I think they were also caution. They were maybe cautiously optimistic, and they were worried too, because they love me, they love Chad, they love our marriage, but it's a lot to go through emotionally. It's a big toll, and not knowing the outcome and wondering if you're making the right choice. It's tough.
Yeah, but you made the right choice, because if you kept it to yourself and didn't speak out, he would have gotten away with it. And he would
Yeah.
have said she's afraid to speak her mind. It's a hard situation. You're stuck between a rock and a hard place.
Yeah, that's the hard thing too, is, when you say he would have gotten away with it, in my mind, he still did.
I can
Um,
imagine, yeah. And
you
you
know,
picture it sometimes too.
yeah. And
You
I
can't
think,
forget.
and that's the hard thing too. And I think maybe that's what continues to drive the work that I do, is because the systems that are in place are broken. So I think, luckily, I have a big loud mouth. So I think that that affords me the ability to try to make strides and make sure that even though he got away with it, he won't continue to, and maybe we can make strides to prohibit others from doing that, if that makes sense.
It's all you wanted was him to say he was sorry, and he never admitted it. And I know the person that whatever he didn't say he was sorry either. They sort of blame it on the other person. They sort of blame it on you. That you know what? I walked down the street one day and he was passing by, and they said, if you go near me, you're going to be singing soprano with the cop behind you.
Yeah.
You can't. Now, who were Patty and Ann, and how did your best friend react to this whole thing? That must have been hard too.
Yeah, so Patty is my aunt. Her and I are very close. So she's my on my mom's side. Her and my other aunt Loretta came into town. They live about 3.5 hours away, so they came into town a week after everything happened, just to kind of like shepherd me and just be there for me. So we talk a little
Yeah.
bit. We hear from them and kind of their perception of how I was at that time. Anne is one of my best friends now. She was actually not a friend during that time, but she was there for the trial, and really the majority of the healing process. So she kind of talks about what it's like to show up when a survivor is living through all of these things. Um, and then we also hear from, or I include the perspectives of Jill and Sarah, who are also best friends for the last couple decades, and their perspective of what it was like to be there and support. And I think all of those perspectives are very important, because, like we were talking about before, secondary victims don't really get a voice. So we're
Mm.
often, their focus was so much on me and my healing and what do I say or what do I don't say. So I wanted to make sure to capture their voices and give them a chance to say, like, I didn't know what to say, I didn't know how to be there for her, and that's okay too. Because part of that is like the conversation and being able to have conversations and just showing up in those instances, whether it's imperfect as it may be.
I couldn't put that down. I have a photographic memory. It scares me. And lately I've been getting some books that I don't read everything. And when I was asked to read this, I looked at it, I said, this is an important story. And yet, 2 weeks ago, I got a book that was a lot different, but not. And told the publicist I refused to write a review on something that I find offensive.
Mm.
Yeah, it was. It was very offensive. And if there are too many bad words in the book, I won't review it either. I mean, I won't review porn. I won't review erotica. And it has to be a story like yours that I believe. Because I've gotten other ones and I've just said, I don't buy this, I'm not reviewing it. I won't put my name on something that I don't believe. And I could write anything, I could just write, this is a very good book, but forget it. Your review is on my website, Just Reviews, Dear Fran Lewis. It's a brand new website. I'm so proud of them. Somebody actually made it professional. And people have been commenting. The good part is that this is going on LinkedIn. And what's been happening, I don't know why. Last week I had 1,626 views on LinkedIn for all of my reviews. For real.
Yeah.
That's amazing me. Just putting your promo on LinkedIn got me about 400 reviews. And
Wow.
yeah, I don't know
You tell me
why.
your secret. I'm in marketing and I'm still trying to figure it out.
I'm gonna put it on LinkedIn. I'm gonna put it on all of them, and then I'll send you the tape, and you can put it wherever you want. And I have my own site from Lewis YouTube, but it goes the minute I put on LinkedIn, forget it. It's like out there in 5 minutes, and I got a notice this morning. I go, you got to be kidding me! I mean, all I did was promote somebody that's coming on in April, and 500 people read it. I go, well, okay. So this is I would do the same thing. You decided that you needed parts of a transcript, and you wanted it in writing. And I agree with that because you can't prove anything unless you have it in writing.
Mhm.
And they did give you one. They have to give you one.
Correct.
They do have to give you one. I know. So what is disassociative, and how do you handle it?
So, disassociation for me looked like feelings of floating or, clouded experiences. So, for a specific example, I recall when my dad was driving me to the hospital, and the feeling that I felt was essentially, and I always kind of look at the right hand side, but the feeling of being up kind of in the right hand side and looking down and seeing my physical self kind of collapsed up against the side of the door, and feeling like it was a very kind of cartoon fog. Another example was a couple months later, while Chad and I were on vacation, he had stepped away, and so I was in, a beautiful, beautiful Jamaica, sitting in a lounge chair, looking at the ocean, and from the outside, everything was perfect. And at some point, he was gone for maybe 5 minutes, but I think that I was at some point my brain started to disassociate, meaning I once again had that feeling where I
Yeah,
was looking down at myself, and it was kind of like an out of body experience. And only when he came back did I snap into it and just kind of broke. So for me, disassociation was, you know, zoning out. So like, if you're, a student's in class and, you zone out, that's what it looked like for me. It can look different for other people. But there were lots of times those first few years where I was not in the present space and had to kind of be snapped back into reality.
you know what? Therapy is important. And when my sister died under odd circumstances, she had a massive heart attack, and her husband never called 911 for 2 hours. And he called, this was at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, he called me at 8 o'clock at night. And when I got to the hospital, the nurse that was there said, she's going to die. I said, pull your own plug because I'm not leaving. And I was there every single day for 3 weeks. Then I came to the hospital, and her husband pulled the plug on her. She's going to die anyway. I said, but I was willing to pay for her home care. I was willing to take on her medical care. I was willing to take on the hospital and pop everything I had to pay for my sister. And I said, and I have her health proxy right here. The hospital didn't honor it. So, yeah, it's the hardest thing in the world. And once in a blue moon, you got to talk it out with somebody.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah, and you know what? There's nothing wrong with it because afterwards you're hearing an objective point of view that's supposedly impartial, as going to tell you you know what, Jessica? You did the right thing.
Yeah.
Because I think if you kept it inside and said nothing, you wouldn't be able to sleep at night. And you'd be
No.
afraid that this, I just hope this guy understands that he better stay away from you. Otherwise, I'm going, hmm. Now, this is really, I love this part. That's what I have the book open to. You decided to create your own business. Yoga is great, I imagine. And Mosca, how did you create that? And I love the fact that there were so many, the healing bags, the adversity to how you do all of those things.
Mm.
Everyone, how does that help you to get ahead? And legal services, that's even better. So
Oh, yeah.
how many people have you helped because you decided to create your own business and go into this with Moscow? I think it's great. I wish I had something like that. That is
Yeah.
great.
So, for clarity, MOXA is the Metropolitan Organization Countering Sexual Assault. So, actually, MOXA
Yeah.
as an organization has been around for just celebrated 50 years. So, that's not, the organization is not something that I created. I sat on the board of directors for, this will be my 8th year. Um, so, MOXA is well also the largest rape crisis center in the entire nation. And so Moxa will send individuals, volunteers to the hospital. So we call it activation. So volunteers will be activated when a rape is reported. So I actually did have a Moxa volunteer show up while I was receiving the rape exam. Because of the denial that I was feeling, I sent that individual away because I thought, this isn't happening. This is shameful and all of the other feelings. So while their services are wonderful, I at that time did not utilize that individual. I then, after everything happened, I kind of just started to do and listen to my therapist and try to find and see what different healing mechanisms worked for me. You mentioned yoga, so that was one of the things that
Yeah.
my therapist recommended was just finding ways to get what you're feeling outside of your body, because a lot of times trauma will manifest physically in the forms of illnesses, heart disease, gastrointestinal issues. So it was really important for her that I maintain some physical activity. So I did. I had done yoga before, but that was one big thing, is that I wanted to get back into the studio and work through some of those feelings. And that was really hard. I mean, it's not a fun thing to be on your yoga mat
Yeah.
bawling your eyes out in a time of peace. But for me, that was something that was helpful that I really leaned into for a number of years.
Now I understand because on October 1st, 2013, I went to a different dentist to find out that my dentist never told me I had a growth in my jaw for 12 years. 12, yeah, 12 years later, they took it out. I don't even look in the mirror because I feel like my face looks weird. Yeah, they took out I can't feel the left side of my face at all.
Oh,
It's
wow.
gone. Yeah, so that's why right now, it's okay. I can't, I was told on Friday by the surgeon, because he had to do some other stuff after 12 years. He said, you're always going to be in pain and you're never going to be able to eat certain foods. So I can't eat pizza. I can't eat anything that requires, but you know what? I'm healthy. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. And there's nothing I can do about it. And I can only do what I can do. But what's coming up next? March 23rd, the author of Tricked will be on. Now, this is a big deal. On April 8th, I was a reading and writing specialist for 19 years in my school. The reason I got my reading master's and my doctorate and everything is because of my reading professor, who is the number one reading authority in the world, Dr. George Cavuto. And we do streams every couple of months. He keeps me on my toes. Not only that, he picks the questions and then quizzes the topic. I have to do the research because he decides what we talk about. Yeah. Oh, he's tough. Yes. On May 5th, Alan Jacobson will be there. And on the 18th, the author of Harlem Dreams will be there. And August 10th, Tess Gerritsen will be there. She's the very first New York Times author she was the very first author I ever interviewed on a different type of show. Thank God for I love Restream. They watch everything I do. They give me the analytics, and then at the end of the show, I will send you the tape because they're taping right now. And if I have a question, they're right there.
That's
All I have
great.
to do is click. Yeah, they listen to everything, which is really good because they make sure that nobody comes on that shouldn't be there.
Oh, good.
Yeah, and I don't allow anybody but the author because I don't need to be whatever. So you have Bixler Consulting. What exactly is that? I mean, you really got to give yourself a lot of credit. Seriously. How many people, somebody else would have crumbled up and you didn't. And with, of course, Chad is great. You're lucky.
Yeah, he really is. He's certainly the unsung hero as well. So Bixler Consulting, I started about 8 years ago. So we do digital marketing and sales consultancy for clients.
Nice.
I've spent my entire career in marketing, and actually, it was never something that I set out to do. Unfortunately, after going back to work after everything happened, I bounced around a few times with jobs, just with the inability to mesh in those situations and various other reasons. And so I was kind of forced to take like a sabbatical and kind of a healing journey. And so I took a few months off from working at all, just to kind of explore what that looked like. And I met someone who I mentioned in the book, Dawn, who I met the day after the company that I was working for closed down. And I think she saw in my face something wasn't right. And she introduced herself to me, and I told her what happened. And she kind of physically, complete stranger, took me under her arm, had me sit by her. We are still to this day good friends. She was my very first client. So she was certainly put into my life for a reason. And she was the reason that I started my business. So I'm very thankful that God puts people in our lives, and that I was open enough to share and just lean into that.
It's amazing. I think what made your life and made you go ahead is because you had a smart and will to make everybody realize. And I think that everyone needs to realize because that's what I've been hearing on the news is exactly that. And unfortunately, not everybody is believed like you finally were.
Yeah, that's
And yeah, and if you're a young girl, I mean, I watched Law and Order the other day. There was a girl that was 15 that was very happy to do prostitution, and there were girls walking on the street that when I taught in a very tough school in the Bronx, I never had a problem. For
mm,
real, as little as I am, I taught tough kids, really tough. Sixth graders, first graders, only discipline problems. My first child decided I was a tough and I never had a problem. But there was a prostitution ring right across the street from my school. And the
mm,
girls came home. They were coming home when I was going to school. I was in school at 6:30 in the morning because I had a group of kids that decided they were coming at 7 for reading. And they
mm,
did. I looked at them and they said, "Good morning, how are you?" They were going. I said, "Good morning, how are you?" They said, "Do you know who we are?" I said, I hope you had a productive night and were careful. And that's all I said. And they said, "Thank you for caring."
mm. Wow.
And they were in the house across the street until somebody told on them. They weren't bothering anybody.
Wow.
And it didn't bother me at all that they were there. Every morning they came home at 6:30. I was there 6:30, and they would stand and talk about whatever they were talking about. And you know what? Didn't bother me. But
Mm.
you know, it's a hard kind of thing. So
Yeah.
your family and friends and anything. What else would you like to share? And are you writing another book?
Oh gosh, I don't know about that. I still, I'd like to say that that was the case. I think I'm still just trying to navigate this one. But I think the thing that I want to say, which we touched on throughout our conversation, is the importance of
Yeah.
survivors. And then the second thing is just showing up again, whether it's imperfectly, and even if you don't know the right thing to say, if you have a loved one who is experienced any sort of trauma or difficulty, I would just say show up. They might not understand, why they're lashing out or why they're shutting down, but it's so important just to show up for the people in your life that you love.
You wrote this book, I mean, I believed every word. And I felt like I was living the situation with you. That's why I said you could write more. I mean, just as I was reading it, and then you did a lot of research, and I did
Mm-hmm.
read the research, and at the end, I was very impressed that you wrote about the family, friends, and everybody that was impacted by this.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say who. It's just that it's amazing that
Thank
that I'm really impressed because I said, gee, how many people would do what you did and then talk about it? And I really think it's important. And
thank
it must have
you.
affected your kids and your family. But now you have to realize I'm doing something. I have Moscow. I'm helping other people. I have an
Yeah.
organization, and you know what? It's over. I
Yep.
know it's hard. Yeah.
And it's also we didn't talk much about that, but my kids were 1 and 4 at the
Yeah.
time they were
Yeah.
little. They're now 16 and 13, so we're in a different trial in life right now. But
Yeah.
it's been a good thing for us, for them to see their mom walk through this, so they know what happened to me. They know about the book. We've talked a lot about it, but to be able to have those conversations with your kids, I also feel very fortunate that we can have those mature conversations now that they are older and they have um, a different outlook on situations, and we can work through that together. So that's really important to me.
Well, I was not allowed to date until I graduated college at 18. Yeah, smart, scary. And I was not allowed to date. And when I did, I had to have an extra person with me.
Mm.
And that was my mother's, she was right, extremely right,
Mm-hmm.
because you just don't know. And I was I graduated with a music degree,
Mm.
music and instrumental, and boy, I can't sing, but I had to take the classes anyway. And I graduated with an education degree in reading. And one of the professors for sightseeing thought I was very whatever. And he said, he was brand new. He said, if you want to pass, you're going to have to be nice to me. Let me drive you home. Really, I said, I'll take an F and I'll fail. Now I'm 17 years old, and I had the guts to tell him, and I told the head of the music department. And they let me back in his class because he was moved some of us to this guy because he was new. And he said, but he's going to grade you. I said, but I have a 4.0 index in every subject. I'm going to graduate with a 4.0 index. And he gave me a C. And I said, you know what? I didn't go back to his class ever again. And I wasn't the only one. You have to speak up and speak out sometimes. And it's like, you're 17 years old and your professor looks at you and it's like, he really said that?
Yeah.
Well, it was my brother-in-law, my sister was married to a really great guy before, and I told him what happened, and he parked the car and he explained to my professor why he wasn't going to do it again.
Well, thank goodness for men like him.
Yeah, I went to Hunter College in the Bronx, and I graduated in 3 years, actually less, because I took 18 credits in the summer.
Wow.
Yeah, it was scary. Being smart can be really, that's why I'm able to read all of these books and understand them.
Yeah.
And I mean, yours is great, but I mean, there's a 700-page book inside. Ted Bell died, but somebody took up the series, and
Mm.
they asked me to read another one of his books, and that's okay because I think I have it figured out before I finished it. So, where could everybody find out about you and your work and everything else?
Yep. So you can visit our website at thestoryweshare.com. The book's available there direct or at Amazon, and of course, anywhere other books are sold.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fran.
Oh, anytime. And I haven't done panels on this. I mean, I can have up to 10 authors on a show at the same time. I did three once, and it was interesting.
Yeah, I bet interesting is the right word.
Yeah, I can do. It's amazing. My sister said when I was retired from teaching, because my mom had Alzheimer's, and I weighed like 200 pounds because I was eating myself under to oblivion. He said, "You're a couch potato. Why don't you write a book?" So I did about growing up in the South Bronx with my sister. I thought she was
Hmm.
going to kill me. My name is Bertha. Bertha speaks out, and Bertha fights back. And I put it in an altar book called Sisters, Two Sisters from the Bronx. I thought she was going to kill me. They're all true stories. They're hilarious. I mean, just trying to teach me how to cook. And I said, "What do you do with the stove? How do you turn it on?" For real. She said, "You're going to make chicken parmesan." So I didn't know what breadcrumbs was. So I used Wonder Bread. So,
Uh-huh.
I mean, seriously. But this has been fun. Thank you so much. I'm going to end the stream. Let me just